So how do we marshal the facts to decide whether we can find the formation of and reflection on the intent to kill? Consider the following factors that evidences that defendant planned the killing. It doesn't need to be planning that's elaborate or takes days. Indeed, we know that planning can take but a moment of reflection. Think about how the victim was killed. Was it a weapon of opportunity, a kitchen knife that was right there, or is it a weapon brought to the scene of the crime with the purpose of killing in mind? If premeditation is the deliberate formation of and reflection upon the intent to take a human life, taking a weapon to the scene could show reflecting on that intent to kill. Was the death the result of an exacting method of killing? If a police officer comes upon a person whose hands are tied behind his back and is hanged, the prosecution can argue that there was planning involved in that act of killing. Also, we get to consider the motive, but this has got to be met with caution. Juries love motives. They want to hear about a motive. But a motive isn't required to prove murder one. It's not required to prove murder two. It's not an element of the crime. And motive alone will never be sufficient to prove premeditation. But coupled with planning efforts, efforts prior to the killing, even some efforts post-killing, demonstrates not only the intent to kill, but also the reflection on that intent to kill. A couple of extra notes about Bingham versus State. When you read this case, you might be wondering, since Miss Cook died during a rape, you might be thinking, why didn't the state charge with felony murder? That would have made a murder one conviction so easy. All the prosecution would have had to prove was that Miss Cook died during a rape that Bingham initiated. Wouldn't have to prove premeditation. And it's true in many states. That would have been felony murder. But Washington has a very narrow view of what constitutes felony murder. We cover that in a different lecture. Suffice to say that in most states, this would have been murder one under the felony murder rule. Miss Cook's death would have arisen during the felony of rape, listed in that murder one statute, and therefore Bingham would have been guilty of murder one. It is much easier to prove the felony murder than premeditation. Finally, my last note on Bingham, I've got to say it. There's one line by the majority opinion that could have been edited out. It's a silly line. It detracts from the analysis. The thought that one can't reflect on an act or a decision while engaged in sexual activity felt hollow to me, not particularly helpful to our analysis to determine whether premeditation exists.